Whenever you walk into one of those magnificent old world cathedrals, right, or even just a beautifully designed modern building, your eyes are immediately drawn upward.
Oh, absolutely. You're looking at the vaulted ceilings, the intricate glasswork, all of that.
Right, the sheer sweeping scale of the architecture. You might even, marvel at how light floods the space.
Yeah.
But almost nobody ever stops to look at the structural load-bearing pillars holding the entire thing up.
Yeah, they are entirely invisible in their function. I mean, we stand back and admire the strength of the house, the beauty of the design, but we rarely think about the immense, crushing physical weight pressing down on that one specific column.
Just to keep the roof from caving in.
Exactly, just doing its job silently.
In that image, that silent, unyielding column is exactly where we are starting today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. If you are someone who loves a good aha moment, and you like understanding the hidden mechanics of everyday life, this topic is going to resonate deeply with you.
It really is. It's a heavy one, but super illuminating.
Yeah. We are looking at a stack of incredibly insightful source material today that explores a completely different kind of burnout.
And I think we need to clarify right out of the gate what kind of burnout we mean here.
Good point.
Because we are not talking about the exhaustion of working 12-hour days at the office. We aren't talking about chasing quarterly deadlines or sleep deprivation from a newborn or even that screen fatigue we all get from staring at our laptops.
Right. No, this is something much more intimate and honestly a lot more insidious. Our mission today is to unpack a phenomenon that the sources refer to as being the pillar or Lam Chol Duya in the original text.
Yes, being the pillar.
So we're looking at what happens when you are the designated savior in your life. You are the person who keeps everyone else from falling apart while the pieces inside of you are silently, secretly crumbling.
It's a really profound dynamic, and the sources we are analyzing today frame this not just as a passing emotional state or like a bad week.
Right, it's not just feeling moody.
No, it's a systemic biological and psychological condition. And the real tragedy is that it goes completely unrecognized by the very people who are benefiting from it.
Okay, let's unpack this, because one of the most validating things in this source text is the proof that this exhaustion isn't just in your head.
Yeah, that validation is huge.
It is. You aren't being dramatic when you feel completely wiped out after helping a friend through a crisis. The sources dive straight into the hard science of what's happening to your body.
They do. The text introduces this fascinating biological concept called co-regulation.
Co-regulation. Okay, what does that actually look like?
So when someone comes to you in a state of panic or deep emotional distress, your nervous system doesn't just passively listen to their words.
Like you aren't just hearing them.
Right. You're actually acting as an emotional substation for them. Your brain engages this network of mirror neurons, which literally forces your body to simulate their distress so you can understand it.
Wait, simulate it like you feel it physically.
Exactly. At the same time, your vagus nerve, which is essentially the communication highway between your brain and your major organs, is working overtime.
Okay.
It's broadcasting signals of safety and calm back to them. So you're taking in their panic and trying to project calm.
If you think about an actual electrical transformer on a power pole, its entire job is stepping down high voltage. Like it takes this massive, dangerous electrical current from the power lines, absorbs it, and steps it down so it can safely enter a house without blowing the circuits.
That is a perfect analogy. And doing that generates a massive amount of physical heat, right?
Oh, yeah. The machine itself takes a beating from processing all that energy.
Exactly. In a state of emotional panic, the other person is running on high voltage negative energy and flooding their system with cortisol, the stress hormone.
Just totally wired.
Right. And when you co-regulate with them, you are absorbing that high voltage. You are using your own stable nervous system to step down their anxiety so they can eventually reach a baseline state of peace.
Wait, hold on. We have been told our whole lives that empathy is a virtue. Like we are taught that helping others is a universally beautiful, rewarding experience.
Yes, that is the cultural narrative.
Right. If giving is supposed to be so good for our souls, why does it feel like a physical tax? Why does my body feel like it just got hit by a truck after a 2-hour phone call with a crying friend?
What's fascinating here is the literal toll this takes on the human nervous system. We need to shift our perspective from viewing empathy as a kind of emotional magic to viewing it as a biological transaction.
A biological transaction. That makes it sound so measurable.
It is measurable. The text highlights a crucial detail. This process of acting as a substation literally burns calories. It drains real biological energy.
Meaning the brain is actually consuming physical fuel to process someone else's emotions.
Exactly. I mean, the human brain only makes up about 2% of our body weight, right?
Yeah, that's pretty small.
But it consumes 20% of our energy in the form of glucose. When you are co-regulating, your brain is performing high-level executive functioning.
It's working on overdrive.
Completely. It is processing complex emotional stimuli, actively suppressing your own stress response so you don't panic along with them, and generating empathy.
Wow.
It is an intense physiological effort. That is exactly why at the end of that 2-hour phone call, the other person walks away feeling incredibly light and relieved.
Because you process their voltage for them.
Exactly. Meanwhile, you feel completely wiped out, physically heavy, as if you just ran a marathon.
That is wild to think about. You can be sitting completely still on your couch, not moving a muscle, but biologically, your internal systems are running a marathon just to process someone else's pain.
Yep.
You are paying the caloric and energetic cost for their relief.
Which is why you feel a literal physical crash afterward. The glucose depletion is real.
So if our bodies are physically drained by this, if it costs us measurable caloric energy, why do we willingly volunteer for it?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right. Like, why do we subject ourselves to this exhaustion and step up to be the substation over and over again?
To understand the why, we have to look beyond the basic survival instincts most people are familiar with. We all know fight or flight, right?
Yeah, of course.
You face a threat, say a predator, and your autonomic nervous system floods you with adrenaline so you can either punch the threat or run away from it.
Classic biology.
But clinical psychology recognizes a third, equally powerful survival response, the fawn response.
Fawning, like extreme people-pleasing, but hardwired into our biology.
Exactly. The sources point out that this almost always stems from childhood.
Oh, it always goes back to childhood, doesn't it?
It really does. The fawn response is usually developed by children who grow up in environments where the adults are unpredictable, emotionally volatile, or simply overwhelmed.
So the kid has to adapt.
Right. The child learns very early on, if I don't cause trouble, and if I can anticipate the adult's needs and keep everyone else happy, the environment remains safe.
You learn that your physical and emotional safety is entirely dependent on the emotional weather of the room. You essentially become the family meteorologist.
That is exactly it. You develop what the text calls an overly sensitive emotional radar. You walk into a room, and before your conscious mind even registers what's happening, your amygdala is already scanning faces.
The threat detection center is just pinging.
Yes. You are reading micro-expressions, analyzing the specific tone of a slamming door, and instantly adjusting your own behavior to appease others and avoid conflict.
It's like leaving your phone's Bluetooth and Wi-Fi scanning turned on 24/7.
Yeah.
Even if you aren't actively trying to connect to a network, just leaving that background scan running drains your battery to zero by lunchtime.
That is a great way to put it, because the hardware is perpetually searching for a signal. It never gets to enter a dormant energy-saving mode.
So is this what society calls kindness? Because it sounds less like a virtue and more like a deeply ingrained defense mechanism. Are we just terrified people masquerading as incredibly generous friends?
This raises an important question, and it's honestly one of the most tragic insights of the source material. What looks like extreme generosity, boundless patience, and altruism to the outside world is, very often, a nervous system trapped in a state of high alert.
A nervous system with no off mode.
Right. Because your safety historically depended on ensuring everyone around you was okay, your brain never gets the biological signal that it is safe to power down. The radar never sleeps.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. You are constantly monitoring the emotional baseline of your friends, your family, your coworkers. You are anticipating their needs before they even have the chance to voice them, just to keep the waters calm.
Okay, but if our brains are constantly running this background scan, how does that actually play out when we're, sitting across the table from a partner or at a family Thanksgiving dinner? It can't be good for the actual relationships.
No, it really isn't. It creates a profound sense of isolation. The source describes this specific phenomenon as the loneliness of the therapist friend.
Oh man, the therapist friend. I think everyone listening has had that moment where you look at your phone, you see a specific friend's name light up, and you instantly feel a wave of exhaustion before you even answer the call.
Yep, you know exactly what's coming.
You know you are about to go on the clock.
When you are the pillar, you become the resident expert on everyone else's lives. You know every corner of your friends' souls. You know their triggers, their childhood history, their daily anxieties.
But the relationship becomes horribly asymmetrical
Completely. Nobody knows what you think or feel because you never share your own struggles.
because you always look so completely in control. People naturally default to assuming you don't need help.
Right. They don't even think to ask.
You've essentially trained them over years to view you as the one who provides support, not the one who requires it. They stop asking how you're doing because the baseline assumption is, oh, they're always fine.
The always fine mask becomes a prison. But the text explores a critical breaking point. What happens when the pillar finally says, actually, I'm not fine. I cannot hold this weight anymore.
What happens when they try to step down?
Well, when you finally try to set a boundary and say no, especially to your family, the reaction is rarely supportive. They often react fiercely, they get angry.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Let's think about a family like a Jenga tower.
Okay, I like that.
You are a foundational, load-bearing block at the bottom. You've carried the weight of your parents' stress or your siblings' drama for years. The moment you decide to slide yourself out, even just an inch to get some breathing room, the whole family system wobbles.
It totally destabilizes.
Right. And instead of the family acknowledging that the tower was built unfairly to begin with, they get angry at the piece that moved.
That is such a vivid picture of family dynamics. Systems, whether they are families, tight-knit friend groups, or workplaces, they crave homeostasis. They want equilibrium.
Even if it's a bad equilibrium.
Exactly. Even if that equilibrium is toxic, dysfunctional, and relies entirely on one person burning themselves out to keep the peace, the system prefers it because it is predictable.
Wow. Predictability over health.
When you set a boundary, you force the system to adapt, and systems inherently resist change. The anger isn't necessarily malice. It is the system panicking because its shock absorber has just stepped away.
But what about romantic relationships? The text specifically calls out how this Fawn response, this deeply rooted need to be the savior, impacts love. And I genuinely struggle with this part.
It's a tough pill to swallow.
It is. If giving is my love language, like if anticipating my partner's needs and being supportive is how I show affection, why is the source material categorizing that as a destructive trait?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, a healthy romantic relationship requires two whole, autonomous people. It requires reciprocity.
Right, a give and take.
The source material warns that when you operate as the emotional pillar in love, you subtly turn the relationship into emotional labor.
Well, that's heavy.
It is. By constantly giving, constantly fixing, and never asking for anything in return, you inadvertently train your partner to believe you have no needs.
You train them to treat you like an appliance.
You become an emotional concierge. And the tragic result is that you disappear within your own relationship.
Disappear.
Yes, you become a service provider rather than a fully realized partner with your own complex desires, flaws, and vulnerabilities. You erase your own identity to maintain a frictionless environment for someone else.
Disappearing in love. That is a heavy, heavy phrase.
It really is.
And it really crystallizes why being the load-bearing pillar is such a dangerous trap. It drains your caloric energy, it keeps your nervous system in a perpetual state of panic, and paradoxically, it isolates you from genuine reciprocal connection.
It hurts you on every level.
So how do we rewire the system? How do we fix the Jenga tower without letting the whole thing crash down on top of us?
The source material offers some incredibly practical, grounded solutions for healing and establishing healthy dynamics. And it starts with a vital reframing of what a boundary actually is.
Because when people hear the phrase set boundaries, they usually imagine pulling up a drawbridge. They picture conflict.
Totally. They picture a fight. But the text emphasizes a crucial distinction. Setting boundaries isn't about building a massive brick wall to keep everyone out. It's about building a gate.
A gate, okay.
A wall is a trauma response. It isolates you completely. A gate is a tool of empowerment. It allows you to consciously choose when to open it and let people in and when to close it to protect your own depleted energy.
It's like being a bouncer at a busy club.
Yeah.
You aren't permanently locking the doors to the public. You are just holding a line for a minute to check the building's internal capacity.
Exactly.
If there are too many people inside, you drop the velvet rope and say, hold on, we're at capacity right now. Nobody else comes in until things clear out and we have room.
That capacity check is exactly what the source recommends as the most practical tactic you can start using immediately. They call it the response pause.
Tell me about the response pause. Because for a chronic people pleaser, the idea of pausing sounds terrifying. You are wired to jump in and fix things immediately.
It is terrifying at first, but the pause is how you break the neurological fawn reflex. The rule is simple. Never agree to help immediately.
Never.
Never. When someone comes to you with a crisis, a request, or an emotional dump, you do not say yes in the moment. Instead, you say, let me check my schedule, or let me check my energy, and I will get back to you.
So you are just buying yourself 5 to 10 minutes. What is actually happening in the brain during that window?
Those 5 to 10 minutes are neurologically vital. In that pause, you interrupt the amygdala's automatic fear response, that instinct that tells you to appease them to stay safe.
It breaks the circuit.
Yes.
Oh.
By stepping away from their high voltage energy, you give your prefrontal cortex, the logical decision-making part of your brain, time to come online.
So you can actually think.
Exactly. You can look at your actual capacity and ask yourself, can I handle this right now, or am I running on empty?
But what about the guilt?
The guilt.
For someone whose entire identity and self-worth is tied to being the savior, how do they overcome the immense guilt of finally closing that gate? If I take those 5 minutes, realize my prefrontal cortex is screaming no, and I tell my friend, I can't help you, the guilt is going to eat me alive.
That guilt is simply the echo of your childhood conditioning telling you that saying no makes you unsafe.
Wow.
To counter it, the text suggests learning the script for a kind refusal. You don't have to be cold or dismissive. You can say, I care deeply about what you're going through, but I simply do not have the emotional space to support you the way you need right now.
I care, but I don't have the emotional space. That is so clean.
Isn't it?
It's honest, and it doesn't make up a fake excuse.
And importantly, it requires vulnerability. The source points out that allowing yourself to be vulnerable, allowing yourself to admit I don't have the capacity, or even asking others for help doesn't make you weak.
Right.
It removes the always fine mask and makes you a normal, accessible human being. It makes you someone who actually exists in the relationship.
Rather than just an emotional utility.
Exactly. And to address the lingering guilt of closing the gate, the text ends with a powerful, classic metaphor. You cannot pour from an empty cup.
We've all heard that one, but it makes so much sense here.
It does. Caring for yourself isn't a selfish act that betrays your loved ones. It is the fundamental prerequisite for sustainably caring for them. If the pillar crumbles, the whole building comes down anyway.
So what does this all mean? Let's bring this all together. We started by looking at the invisible, crushing weight of being the savior. We learned that emotional labor isn't just a metaphor for feeling tired. It has a literal, physical, caloric cost.
Real biological energy.
Your brain is consuming massive amounts of glucose, running a biological marathon, when you co-regulate with someone in distress.
We also uncovered the roots of this behavior. Fawning is a deeply ingrained defense mechanism. It's an emotional radar constantly scanning the room to keep you safe from unpredictability and conflict.
And we saw how the always fine mask is a trap. It leaves you profoundly lonely as the therapist's friend, carrying the unfair weight of your family's Jenga tower and slowly disappearing into your own romantic relationships.
Which is such a heartbreaking outcome.
It really is.
Yeah.
But there is a way out. Boundaries are gates, not walls. And that 5-minute response pause is the neurological key to checking your capacity before you take on someone else's high voltage.
Absolutely.
If you are listening to this right now and you know in your bones that you are the designated fixer in your friend group or your family, this is your permission slip to clock out. Your nervous system deserves a break from constantly scanning the room.
As we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final lingering question to ponder as you go about your day.
Let's hear it.
We've talked so much about the burden of this role and the physical cost of carrying it, but consider the flip side. If your entire identity and your perceived value in all your relationships has been built on being the savior and the pillar, who are you and what does your life actually look like when everyone around you is completely fine?
Wow. That is the real work, isn't it? Finding out who you are when you aren't holding up the ceiling. Because you are allowed to be more than just the structural load-bearing pillar. You are allowed to be the artwork, the stained glass, the person simply enjoying the space. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.